Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. I upgraded Sen's Fortress. This is actually my first time comparing what we're in right now is Dark Souls Remastered Unmodded, which I think actually looks pretty good. I haven't loaded up the unmodded Dark Souls Remastered in so long, at least for Sen's Fortress, and yeah, it looks pretty good. But what I did in my Dark Souls Re-Remastered mod is we're going to do a side-by-side through the, obviously the magic of editing. And because obviously everything you'll see in the new picture will be upscaled textures, dynamic shadows, baked lighting removed. But what I'm really showing off is what I did yesterday. And I've been wanting to do for a while. It's the distant meshes here. You'll see are, it's Undead Burg, right? Undead Parish. And then you have these distant walls, and it all looks really quite good. And then you have Andre's apartment over there that he's leasing currently. I think the lease is up soon, but not sure who the landlord would be. But anyway, it's all obviously like, smoke and mirrors to a certain degree. But I think it's incredibly effective. But I had the idea of like, okay, let's do what I did in other areas where I pulled in the actual meshes from Undead Burg. Can I replace this distant portion, Andre's house or apartment, and this distant mesh? Because I think this distant mesh actually isn't that bad. But there's actually a lot of room for improvement of like the bridge that would be over there, the wall. So let's pop into Dark Souls Re-Remastered, but I want to look around so you get a good view. Also, I replaced the trees here months ago. I think these trees actually look really good from this angle. Well, it's not really that good when you look down this way, but pretty good, honestly. So yeah, let's pop in and store our camera settings, and then we will be back in Dark Souls Re-Remastered in just a second. All right, we're back, and now for the big reveal. So I even put the gargoyles up there, the little stone gargoyles, the non-transforming ones, mind you. The front two are the transforming ones, so those are gone. And yeah, I modified the depth of field a little bit. I actually don't know why Andre's portion looks that way. It's kind of weird, because this makes it look like there's overlapping meshes, but there's actually not. Because I actually moved Andre's house in my version, and it still makes that little weird artifacting. So I'll look into that. But yeah, you can see now you have where my head is actually the Taurus Demon's Tower, for that boss battle, and then the wall. And I even put the Great Hollow because I felt like, why not, And then you'll even have at the periphery over here where my head is those are the branches from Firelink Shrine. I actually ended up going into that map too, and putting that in there. And so yeah, I think it's pretty fucking good, Pretty happy with that. There's some bugs and things, and I had to like move trees a little bit to cover certain things, but I think it's really, I don't know, works pretty well. But now the more important thing is I want to show how did I do it, because it's not actually as hard as I think people might think. We'll get a little bit more of a look around. But yeah, we got some trees. These are trees from Darkroot Garden. They're just obviously colored more towards Sen's Fortress, right? And then you have the delightful exterior of Sen's Fortress with the baked lighting removed. We got Big Homie hanging out over here, which I think I can jump over to this jabroni who's been causing me issues while I'm up in Sen's Fortress, Just rude. I don't even know who this Sen guy is, but man, he is a bitch. Okay, let me kill this person first, and then we'll then I will go into DS Map Studio, and everything I did to pull in. Hey, okay, you know what? Yeah, do your thing. I got iframes, okay? I gotta upgrade his textures. I think some of his textures are fine. Yeah, bitch. That's what I thought, okay? We're gonna keep your big boulder pile. Yeah, let's close out. And let's go into, let's see, we have unmodded DSR open. Great. I was working on Blighttown. Don't worry about it. Don't look at that. That's not important. And let's open up another DS Map Studio. And it's surprisingly easy to bring in distant map pieces. So basically, there's the main way I've shown, but then there's probably the preferred option. So let me load up Sen's Fortress on the project I have here, which has my new additions, where you can see the trees, and you can see I even loaded in the Firelink Other Burg town that you're not actually going to see, but I think it technically is in the depth of field just slightly. You might see it, but I was just like, just to be sure. And I loaded in the bridge, and then, you have your towers, even Solaire's little... I was just really trying to make sure that I had the full picture, because I was constantly kind of flying over here to where your character can stand and go, okay, what's the viewport here? And so I knew the Great Hollow would show up over here, and then I pulled in some actual map pieces from Firelink while I was here, and it's pretty easy. So let's load up, because basically the thing I want to pull from is Undead Burg, right, for most of this. And so in unmodded DSR, I will load Undead Burg, or maybe I won't. Okay, maybe I won't. I'll just load it up again separately. Try and stop me, DS Map Studio. Couldn't load project. Oh. What the hell? Ah, crap. Oh. Oh. Shh. Oops. I forgot. Let's open up. I know what I did. Heyo. Okay, there you go. Okay, that was my oopsie. When I was doing the renaming of the folders, I goofed. But yeah, so here we go. So we have Undead Burg in the unmodded DSR project. So I can see how it is 100% that way. And then I have my Sen's Fortress over here. And what you want to do is then open up. I will go back. This is going to be a little bit messy because it's a messy process. So don't, I'm sure I'll get some comments about that. But it's a messy process. So from what we know, because they list them right here, the actual indicators, like the numbers for each map. So 1001 is Undead Burg. So basically, you go to your Dark Souls Remastered folder, with all your folders inside there, go to map, and you go to 1001. This will have all of your map pieces. And they're obviously labeled by their actual number. And you have 40, 1070, and those are they all correspond with what you click on. In View in DS Map Studio, you'll see their map piece 2322, and that will correspond to the file here. And what I did, now you'll see in mine, I have B0, B2, B1, different indicators. And basically that's because I've expanded my Undead Burg to including different things from Firelink Shrine and the depths and all different things. So basically the quick way to look at it is Undead Burg is B1. The depths, B0. And in this case, Darkroot Garden is also B0. but they have a different ending number. And just stick with me, I promise this will make sense. And B2 is for Firelink Shrine. And the reason why you have to keep this in mind is that when you actually pull these over, which we'll do in just a second. So basically what I did is grab all the B1s, because those are the ones from Undead Burg. Because you'll see here when I grab or I look at anything, it's all B1. Everything in the Undead Burg map is B1. So that's your quick way of knowing that. So I basically grabbed everything from here that was B1, which, as you can tell, there's a shit ton of them. I won't need all of them, but that's fine. I grabbed all of them and I pulled them over to 1500, which is Sen's Fortress. And so you open this up, and what I did is I put them in a separate folder called Undead Burg and Sen's. And you'll see I pulled all of them here. You have all the B1s. I had a couple I copied over that I didn't actually need that were B2s and B0s. I ended up accidentally clicking them. But what you're going to do is highlight all of them. And there's a program I have called Bulk Rename here. I believe there's also like a built-in Windows version. But anyway, you click on that. You highlight them all, right-click. And what you're going to do is you'll see they already have the A15. But when I dragged them over, they had A10. A10 represents Undead Burg, Firelink Shrine, and the Depths. A15 represents Sen's Fortress and Anor Londo. And those numbers you'll see corresponding to each over here, like Kiln of the First Flame is M18, Northern Undead Asylum is M18. So they, at the end of all of their model files, would have A18. So that's how the engine actually understands. And so you basically highlight all of them, and you would say, and what I did is I said, okay, so everything that has A10, change it to A15. And then you hit rename, and then what you get here is everything has A15. So now the Sen's Fortress map will accept this. And so this is where we get into the B1 versus B0 versus B2, because those are the three different indicators the game engine uses. And as you can see, Sen's Fortress, by default, uses B0. So all of my B1 additions will apply just fine, because you'll notice that a lot of them have the same actual name or indicator, which is M2000. There's one that's M2000B0, which is from Sen's Fortress, and then M2000B1, which is actually from Undead Burg. And so that's why the B indicators are very important in this case, is you don't want to overwrite the models that are actually Sen's Fortress models. So luckily in this case, B1 does not, doesn't really go against that. Now, of course, here's the other thing you can do. Let's say you did have one. The actual map that you're pulling from did have B0s that would overwrite all of Sen's Fortress models. Luckily, you can just rename them. You can actually just click in and do 101, and then it should actually pull that as 101. You just would change it in the actual DS Map Studio here. You could change that to 101. So luckily it's pretty easy to just do that, and you can do it in between whatever ones aren't taken currently, and then you're good to go. So basically I dragged all those into the map file here, and so now we have our new Undead Burg models. And then I basically went one by one, and I was floating around my unmodded DSR one, and I'd go, oh, okay. For instance, here, you want to ignore 2380. 2380, M2380B1 is one of the biggest map pieces in the entire game, and it encompasses all, or most of Undead Burg, and then the giant Anor Londo, rock wall. And it's basically used for like distant fakery. So pro tip, go in here, find it because it's highlighted, and then tell it to not show that in DS Map Studio. So now when you actually highlight over something, and you'll have to do this for some of the other ones too, like 2510, you'll just make sure that doesn't render either. And now you've mostly gotten it down to the actual legit map pieces that you want to pull in. So basically I would grab this, and it would say 3001. I would then go into my project over here, and it's actually right here. And so let's say we delete that. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, there's 2 of them. So basically we have it here. We have no 3001. And a quick way of doing that, there's different ways. What I used to do is load up both maps at once and basically just highlight something and then hit edit, duplicate to map. You can do that, but it's going to bring in all of the lighting settings, like the light ID, fog ID, scatter ID, and then the draw groups. It's going to pull those over from the map that it came from. And you don't want that to be messed up, and because you'll have to change all those. And then if you miss one and then it doesn't render. So what I end up doing is I already know this map piece is good to go. And it's got the draw groups I want. It already has all the light IDs I want, scatter, lens flare, all that. And so basically I just hit Control D, and now I've made a duplicate of it, and I change the model name to what I want, which is M3001B1, and you'll notice I click away, whoop, and now it pops up. And you'll notice with how Sen's Fortress works, they basically had a duplicate, which actually I'll talk about in just a second. That is that's a bit of a different thing. So let's see. Oh, draw groups 7. Okay. And yeah, so poof. And I basically did that for every single little part here for Undead Burg, is I just copied something that was already in Sen's Fortress and had the draw groups I wanted. Now, of course, you can just change the draw groups anytime you want to something else. But how did I know what draw groups to use? Well, that's the other thing I've gotten so much better at. As before, I would hit 0, where they would like render all the time, which works when you're in the map, right? But it's also sort of sloppy and not performance friendly, because you can just render it even when sometimes it's not set to be rendered, right? Like when you're inside Sen's Fortress, it should not be rendering some of the outside stuff. So that's how they would blow it out of memory, right? Is that it would, based on the draw group and the collision that you were standing on, is when it would unload certain things. And the easy thing I found is basically, it was sort of like a eureka moment where I was like, damn, that's so fucking straightforward. Why did I not think of this? So I kept goofing around with draw groups until I realized what you should do is just load up. So in my unmodded DSR portion over here, basically just go in here and then click on the fake distant Undead Burg they have here, and just look at the draw groups it was using, and then just copy those over. And that's what I did. And so now the game will basically render in these high quality versions at the same time as it would when it would render in these fake ones. So you basically just copy their homework, and there you go. And so now you have new Undead Burg meshes. Now, one other thing, that this will not work on every map, that when you go in game with these meshes, because if you pull in meshes from just any map you want, it's not guaranteed they're going to load the textures for those map pieces. Now, luckily, with Sen's Fortress, I was blessed that Sen's Fortress already uses what's known as a connect collision. So the connect collision, basically, you step on it and it will then render something from a completely different map, but not in the way that I'm doing it. It will render it for real from that map. And that's sort of the way it can traverse maps and load that. It does that for Izalith. When you are in Blighttown and you go to ring the second bell, what you see out there is the real Izalith. That's not actually faked. That's them using a connect collision and then rendering all of those map pieces. So it's really cool. I am doing it the more controllable way for me, where because I'm using essentially duplicates of real meshes, I can alter it to however I want, and it doesn't affect the actual Undead Burg. I basically want there to be a separation. So I don't want to be fucking with that map. And so all of this is still fake, but they're just better fakes, if that makes sense. And, but yeah, so the connect collision I got lucky with, because Undead Burg, and you'll notice this with some other maps like Firelink to Undead Burg, and then Dark Route, I think was the same case. But basically, they already had a connect collision set up. And the weird thing is you don't actually have to step on that specific connect collision. The fact that it exists alone is enough for the game engine to then be able to load those textures. So that's why when I go in game, it was able to load all the textures for Undead Burg, these map pieces, because those textures are not stored in the actual folders here. So you'll see M15 is where they store the Anor and Sense Fortress, and then M10 is for Undead Burg, Firelink Shrine, the Depths. 11 is for Painted World. 12 is for Darkroot and Ulasil, and 18 is for the Kiln, and then the Undead Asylum. 17 is for Duke's Archives, and so that's where they actually store the textures. So when you're on Sense Fortress map, the Connect collision allows the game engine to pop into the M10 and then pull out the textures it needs for whatever's being rendered. So that is luckily, that was already there. I didn't need to make a new Connect collision because I didn't actually want to do that. You can get into some weird fuckery and then have NPCs dying. Because it'll then render something and then the floor falls and there's no collision and then the NPC dies. It's a whole thing. So luckily it was pre-existing and it was easy peasy. But I made some small adjustments to the spacing. And the other thing you have to make sure when you're pulling in these map pieces, because the interesting thing is you'll notice when I loaded in this 3001, it actually loaded in the correct spot. And that's because they actually have like an origin point within this larger world, and it actually understands where it should go. And so the places that it is in the, the fake ones that I've placed here are actually in the identical same spot as they are in the real Undead Burg map. So there is like an intelligence to the map system, and it knows where this or how this puzzle goes together, right? Now, one thing you do have to pay attention to is when you click on the object over here on the unmodded side, you will see, let me drag it over here, you'll see scale, rotation, and position. Most all of them should have their position as 0. Like that's their origin point is 0, and it's like a relative thing. So it's not 0 as in an absolute spot, it's 0 as in it's relative to the actual origin that's set up for that model. But you'll notice on some of these, and this is where I fucked up when I first pulled them in, you'll see some of these actually have, not 2430. There's another fake one. Get out of here. So 2410 is this side of the Taurus Demon, like boss area. And then you'll see 2031, 2030 and 2031. Now the other one's a part of another fake one. And you'll see these actually have a rotation of 30. And, they actually have position -10. Oh, really? Oh, did I not? Oh, did I fuck up on that? Maybe. Well, anyway, basically you need to look at the position here and the rotation. So it was rotation 30. So when I loaded it in, it had basically taken the rotation from whatever I had duplicated prior to then make that model. And it was, rotation 0 is what it starts at. And so they were way off. And so then I just had to make sure that I had it set to 30. Interesting. The position seems like it doesn't need to be... Interesting. Is this also set? Wow, everything is set to -10. Oh, I may have fucked up. Really? Alright, -10. Oh. Oh, so it's not up or down. It was actually... Whoa. Oh, that's cool. Oh shit, did I fuck up? I think I fucked up. Oh yeah. Wait, are they all -10? Oh my god. Oh dang, okay, maybe I did have the spacing wrong. Oh shit. But see, this one isn't -10. Oh, weird. Oh, yeah, you can actually see. You can see here, I had it incorrect and I didn't even know. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad I made this video. So yeah, this one does not have -10, but you can tell the bridge actually requires -10. Oh yeah, I forgot. They all have duplicates because there's a separate draw group that Sense Fortress uses. Really? Really? Okay. Well, we can fix this. That's not bad. And oh shit. Oh, I forgot I had that as well. Okay, well, it's a bit laborious, but you can multi-select, obviously. Problem is I don't want to select all of them necessarily. Does look like I could select. All right, let's see. Is this one part of it? Yes. Damn, all right. Holy shit. Okay. So you can multi-select. And unfortunately, I have duplicates for every single one of them for reasons. I'm not actually sure when it's used, but it's a draw group of 7. They're basically duplicates, and they're just a draw group of 7. So it corresponds to something at Sense Fortress when you're in a certain spot. But basically, yeah, you just go whoop, and we just, yeah, look at that. I fucked it up. Easily fixable though. And you just go -10, -10, -10, -10. And let's make sure, oh shit, okay. I fucked up on that one. Yoink. And you basically just, now you will see in DS Map Studio, why does it load without any textures? That's because of the way DS Map Studio works, and I'm only in the Sense Fortress map. And so it isn't gonna go out and load the textures for Undead Burg. So that's why it looks a little strange, but don't worry about that. In game, they will show up just fine, as long as you have that connect collision pre-existing. Now, actually, this is a good opportunity for, well, what do you do if there is not a connect collision? Because I obviously mentioned that using connect collisions can cause issues, and it can be very much not cash money to do them. And so that's actually where you get into going into the map folder here. And what you can do is actually go into these map files. And once you know essentially what texture each map piece uses, which it uses a lot, but essentially I'm not going to go like super in depth with it. But if let's for instance say you needed the texture for the 1000 floor 01, that was used on a map piece you pulled over, and the normal map and the specular map, which are all right here. Basically you can drag that and then open up the M15, which is for Sense Fortress, and then you can crack open one of these texture files, which you'll see here, TPF BHDs. You open that up, and then down here you would actually copy the thing you just brought over, which you'll see some of the M10 stuff is already in Sense Fortress by default, but they're like the low quality. These are the textures that are used for the old fake Undead Burg. That's what these are. So they shoved them in the texture folder. So what you can do is basically copy that, and you'll see, oh, egg DDS, that was the last thing I copied? I thought I grabbed the other one. Anyway, just imagine I copied the texture file I thought I grabbed. And basically then you just need to open up your XML file here, which it'll say Witchy or Yabber, depending on which one you're using, but the process is the same, thankfully. Is you'll see a list of the actual files, and if you want to add a new file, so let's say you wanted to add the Undead Burg textures, you would basically go one by one. And so I think in Witchy you have to do the IDs and add a new ID, where Yabber you can just shove that in there, and there is like no ID based thing, and you can just change it. So yeah, you duplicate that, and then you change this to the new texture you just added to that folder. And I'm gonna cancel out so I don't save any of that. And what does that do? Well, that puts it into the M15000 TPF-BHD, so that when you go back and you actually right-click on this and hit Witchy B&D or Yabber if you're yabbering, it will then repack it, but that text file tells it what to repack. So it will repack the texture that you actually stored in there. And so now when the game engine tries to load the texture for said map piece that you pulled over, it will now see that that is in there, and then bada bing, bada boom. So yeah, that's a really long-winded way of going through all of that. I doubt anyone would have stayed for most of that. I think the before and after was the cool part. This is sort of the nerdy behind-the-scenes thing. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, a like would help out the channel a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share the video if you have Dark Souls nerds, or if you know a Dark Souls modder that might find any of this useful. Then cool beans. I also have a Patreon for ad-free versions of these, because what's worse than someone rambling about Dark Souls modding? Ads popping in. But it does help the channel, and I make a little bit of money. And so Patreon is a way that you can also support the channel, but then get ad-free. So pretty cool. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.